Much has been written about Sam Beckett, but it was almost impossible to reach the man inside. Here is one tale, fact upon fact. One particular day I spent in the company of a man with whom I shared a real and close affinity, almost unspoken, but totally knowing. A couple of phone calls, a plane trip, then driven to the banks of the Marne by John Calder, Beckett's publisher. And I was to meet Beckett concerning an evening that he wanted me to do. It had all been very spur of the moment, virtually happening on the day, a day that was to move from Cornford, Chesterton, and Bruegel almost to the horror of Bosch. As we took the road east from Paris, I was nervous, jumpy, at a low emotional ebb. It had been a trying, tiring year, and when Calder pulled up at a grey French village, I felt a stab of unease, wishing to keep moving. We went into the store together, Calder looking to purchase 2 bottles of fumet as a supplement to the smoked salmon he was carrying to present to the hermit. Beckett lived alone and, ominously, unbeknownst to me, in the middle of nowhere. It was an awful little store, cramped and crammed with unsteady-looking pyramids of cans which threatened to rain down in avalanche should a body risk a cough. While we waited, we talked. Me, quietly, staccato, quickly, feeling the quicker I spoke, the quicker the shopkeeper would deliver, the quicker for us to be out and on our way. At some sound I glanced up to see a creature stood beside me, clutching a paper bag with some kind of food in it. A mini baguette sticking out the top. A poor-looking thing. An American, you could tell. "Excuse me, but are you English?" An American indeed. "Yes," snapped Calder and turned away. I wasn't, but didn't say so. "It's so good to hear a friendly voice." He meant kindred tongue, for by no stretch of the imagination could you say Calder sounded friendly. There was a clipped English public school coldness about him. When the man spoke, it was in a gentle dying fall, with the weak effort and care of someone recovering from serious illness. In a light brown, nondescript suit, he looked somewhat between a sad-failed Eisenhower and Ichabod Crane. While the fumet changed hands, Ike confided he was on holiday. He probably thought France was a far-off state of the Union. On his own, and none too happy. I liked him, as I liked most Americans. Half my family are on both sides anyway, although there are few left now. So I had sympathies. At the last, "I don't even know what I'm doing here," said Ichabod. "Then why don't you go home?" Yapped Calder, a fumet bottle under each arm as he marched out the door. It was said in such a shocking manner, a pan of cold water dished in the face, that I instantly apologized, but Ike didn't seem to mind. "Maybe I should," he said. "I just don't know what to do." Out in the strangeness of the street, I felt that small, so small, ice-light jab of warning and unease, realizing I was grinding my thumbs into my palms, a habit of my father's whenever he felt distress. I aimed a little smile and fragile wave to Ichabod Ike, standing lonely in his D-mob suit in the doorway. "So long," I called softly. "Take care." Ike waved back, a threadbare invalid. Getting in beside Calder, I kept myself to myself all the way to Ussy. Arriving through fields of waving corn, we honked at Sam's gates for a full minute before I got out to use the famous bellows, howling, "Sam!" Nothing in return. I began to agitate in the eerie silence, shouting twice more, which set a dog off barking miles away, before a peculiar figure put in its appearance, loping towards us from behind the angle of a small cement building. The hair was iron-grey and swept back like that of a bird of prey. Ice-blue eyes burned fiercely behind steel-rimmed spectacles. The long, aquiline nose, sharp and hawkish above a mouth, pouted in a welcoming smile. The lower lip jutting, giving the impression he was sucking on a lozenge behind his bottom teeth. "Hello, John. Have you been here long?" No, we said simultaneously. "Ah, hello, Nick. It's good to see you. I'm sorry, I mustn't have heard you." All this as he undid the gates. The voice the gentlest Irish brogue, and when he uttered the word "ah," It was short, colloquial, like Americans use Calder drove through to park the car under a long open shed that housed logs and garden implements, and Sam turned to me. "Still feel the same, huh, Nick? Still feel the same?" "Yes, Sam. Yes, just the same." "Ah," he said again, looking knowing and glad, and I felt the first real flutter. The pinpoint was growing, as I feared it would. In near deliberate activation, Beckett's voice like a searching finger was tracing round my panic button. "Come and see my house, Nick." And we moved forward onto a huge expanse of shaven grass, and only grass, with its encompassing wall and its one building which could only be described at best as a cell block in miniature. Behind it the long open shed, where Calder was parking his car. Not a flower or tree to be seen. Sam took us into the house, which had dull tile floors and no carpets. In the soft, gentle tones of a priest, "This is where I work, Nick." A desk of plain wood stood against a blank wall, a plain wood chair before it, no pictures anywhere. He opened a door. The bathroom. An old sit-up hip bath stood in the middle of a nothing room, stirring images of geriatric collapse. "And here's the place to sit down in." He indicated a space at the far end of the work area, with 3 chairs and a small round table, all wooden. Place to be grilled in, I thought. All that's missing is the bare light bulb. Oh, Christ, there it was up on the ceiling. Was this where we would eat? Please God, no. Any minute now and the animated cardboard pop-ups would spring up round the table. Camus, Yeats, Eliot, Stevie Smith and Philip Larkin to make up 8 for lunch. Through a door lying slightly ajar, I spied what looked to be part of an iron-frame cot. "Bedroom's in there," said Sam, "and here's the kitchen." I followed him into a depressing space looking onto the long shed from which Calder was hurrying, bearing goodies. After presentation and thanks, it was suggested we go outside. The word garden was never used, only outside. I nearly turned my ankle on the one step down in my haste to vacate the cement block. Another day, in an ease of wine and summer dreams, it might have been a plain, cool little Spartan corner, but today, to me, it was the barren worst of Kafka, a place of retribution of the soul. It was almost square, the garden, the house sitting near the top end, and the shed against the back top wall, a gravel space between them which led to the solid gates. The grass was to the wall on all sides, the whole place shorn, the wall a naked grey. I stood and looked. Sam at my shoulder, Calder a little way off. "You like my house, Nick?" I couldn't answer. "Like a monk's cell, huh? Like a monk's cell?" "Yeah." "It's all you need, Nick." "There are no trees, Sam." "No." "And no flowers either." "No flowers, no. What do you want flowers for?" Again the lozenge smile. "I thought, gentle monk." "What did you think, Nick?" "There might be one tree lichen." "No trees, no." With Sam standing by me, I felt despair like a shadow at our backs. Only Sam could cope with it better than me. Calder coughed, and I looked at Sam. Those eyes, unrelenting, their pain, fear, anguish, rage, contempt, completely hidden. How they tried to make you face it, that this was all there is. Insistent. "I'd really like a drink, Sam," I said, like you ask for love, quavering. The eyes lifted their siege without softening. "Ah, we must eat. Yes, we must eat, Nick. I'll fix things." "I'll give you a hand." This from Calder, and they strolled off cellwards. I watched them go, then gazed around Sam's little mathematical Eden, all cut and dried, created in defiance of chaos. Turning back to the bottom wall, I tiptoed toward it like a child who's been told, "Don't you dare." You couldn't look in, I discovered later, unless you were de Gaulle standing on an apple box. And you could just see out, but again you needed to be de Gaulle, this time without the box. In a series of little pogo stick jumps, I could make out a small sheet asbestos shed on some waste ground, lots of distant fields of grain in many shades of yellow, and trees. No houses. Not like anywhere I could remember in England or in America. The terrain had an unworldliness about it that started to bother me. I thought of Ichabod. I don't know what I'm doing here, and moved briskly to the house, craving wine and fellowship.